Welcome to Art with Mrs. Cap. I have a fun demo that we're going to do today that focuses on space, value, and pattern. So we're going to work on those three things in this one assignment or this one little project. It's a lot of fun to do. So hopefully, you can kind of create your own little creative space, however that works for you, whether it's lighting some candles or having some music playing or something like that, whatever works for you. So you're going to need some basic supplies for today's project. You're going to need some paper, colored pencils, a black marker, fine tip felt pen or something like that that's black. Sharpie will work also, as long as it's got a good sharp point. And then a regular pencil, and then you're going to want some objects in different shapes to use for this. I'll be using primarily squares for this demo, just to make it as simple as possible. If you want to get a little experimental, you can do some more elaborate shapes as well. And you also want a ruler or some type of straight edge. Let's get started. All right, so the first thing you want to do to get started on this project is you want to make a point in the middle of your paper, and we're going to call this our vanishing point because we're working with perspective. We're going to be doing 1 point perspective today. So this little dot that you see here, we're going to call it our vanishing point. You can also shorten that and just call it your VP, but it'll be our vanishing point. So if you hear me say vanishing point, this is what we're talking about. Once I've done that, I'm just going to take my square objects and I'm going to lay them around in different, directions, and I'm just going to start tracing. I'm going to first do it in pencil so that, if I make a mistake or whatever, or if I'm using something that I don't want to mess up, I won't leave markers, marks on it. Okay, and you'll just want to do them in some different areas, different arrangements. Because I'm doing this in pencil, it is okay if I go off those edges. That's why we want to do it in pencil, in case that happens. And you just want to kind of make it a little sporadic. So you don't want, the same shapes all together. You want to kind of vary it. This is just a magnet from one of my trips to Oklahoma. So that's what that is that you're seeing here. My husband and I collect magnets on our travels. So whenever we go somewhere, that's like our one big souvenir kind of thing. Obviously we might get other things, but magnets are what we get. So this is actually from a reservation in Oklahoma. So I'm sticking with squares for this demo, but if you want to get a little adventurous and try some other shapes, you can. If you wanted to do rectangles, you could do something like that. But for me, for this, I'm just going to stick with some squares. So once you have finished laying out your shapes and you're happy with what you have, also keep in mind you don't want them too bunched together. You're going to see why in a minute. So I'm kind of happy with what I have going on here, and then I'm going to go ahead and outline these in marker and then move on to the next step, which is also in pencil. But I want to go ahead and get these, marked out in marker to make it a little bit easier to see where these are. So I'm going to actually use my straight edge just to be extra careful. So this is something that, you can do at home if you want to. You can use your straight edge to, get those really straight, crisp lines. This does take longer in this way, but if you know you need that extra, guide, feel free to do it this way. All right, once I finish this, I'm going to clean up my lines and my pencil marks and just kind of, erase those real quick. Get rid of some of those ugly marks that I left behind. All right, now that I've cleaned these up and I have these all laid out and ready, I am going to use my ruler to draw lines from the corners of my shapes to the vanishing point. You're going to start with the shapes that are closest to your vanishing point first. And there's a reason you're going to do that, because as you start to overlap, you actually are not going to overlap. So your lines will disappear behind. It'll get too confusing if you start from the outside and go in, because then you'll have a bunch of lines you have to erase and you don't know what line goes where and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to start with the shapes that are closest to my vanishing point, and then I will radiate out and go from there. Okay? All right, now that I have laid these out in pencil, I'm going to go back with a fine point marker. I don't want it to be as thick as up here, so I'm going to go in with a fine point marker and color those lines, or trace over those lines. This will be a little tedious, but I think it's better, especially if you're new to this technique or whatever, to do it in pencil first, instead of your pen slipping or hand slipping and then you have to start all over again. So I would do it in pencil first and then go over it with pen. Once we get done with this step, it's going to be a little bit easier to do the next steps. All right, so once I've done this, I'm going to erase my pencil lines once again, and then we'll be good to move on to the next step. All right, once I have finished erasing all my pencil lines, I am good to start my Zentangle patterns. I am only going to do those in the original boxes that we drew. So those planes that are closest to you are what we're going to do our Zentangle patterns on. We're going to do something else on these sides that we have here. So I'm only doing designs on these original squares that we started this whole perspective drawing with. All right, once you have completed all of your patterns here, we are going to do value scales with our colored pencils on these sections. You want to make sure every side of the same object has the same color, but then you can have different colors on the different objects. But make sure there's that unity where you have, you know, say we're going to do a blue value scale on this one. This is a blue value scale and this is a blue value scale. You can't have blue and red. So make sure that they work together. You remember what value of value scale is, just going from the darkest value of that color to the lightest. So I'm going to start with my dark down here. Make sure you're in the right spot too. So you want to make sure you're not, you know, doing it in the wrong place. And then as I come up, I am going to lighten. So I'll just have my lightest value here closest to the shape. Again, we're going to do these little sides right here. And I don't want it to go to white, just because I want to have that color, you know, against the shape. So I'll color all the way to that edge or close to that edge, so that, you know, there's still that color right there against my pattern. You can use different materials to do this. I just think colored pencil is probably the easiest, especially if this is your first time doing this. I also think it's the easiest to get that value scale look that we're going for. So, and then it's better to start lighter and work your way up to a darker value than it is to start dark and then be stuck where you know, can't get those lighter values that you want. So if you see, like, I've been working my way up, so I'm kind of going back over and darkening the darker sections a little bit there to get it more what I'm looking for. Let's see, if I had started really dark and I'd been real heavy with how I leaned down with my pencil, I wouldn't have been able to get this lighter value in here. Once you finish this step, you have a couple of optional steps to really make this pop up off of the page. You can cut out your whole 3D perspective shape and then paste it onto black paper, or you can color around it with black, like a black Sharpie or, you know, black markers, to really give it that pop. I would definitely recommend a Sharpie as opposed to the Crayola marker, just because it'll get a more even, you know, black tone to it. But I will show you an example of it when I have finished this in black, and that'll be the next step. This is an optional step, but I really think it really gives, you know, it really elevates this work even more. So we'll go ahead and get started on that. Obviously, I'm not finished, but this gives you an idea how adding in that black there like really makes everything pop. So I'm gonna keep working on this. I will post a photo at the end of this video of the finished work after I filled in all of this. And that way you can kind of see and decide for yourself which way you want to go with this. But thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed this little demo. Bye.